Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava. We are Fiapoko Samoan veterans who talk about topics surrounding Samoan culture and life. I am your host, Michael Tan, and here with me today are Spencer, Ati, and Milford. To listen in on the latest episodes, be sure to follow us and subscribe on all social media platforms, including YouTube and Spotify. I hope you enjoy this episode. But before we get straight into it, I want to introduce our special guest today, Leti Faitala. Could you introduce yourself?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Leti Faitala. I live out here in West Shore, Utah. I grew up in Samoa and Hawaii. I do a lot of the board stuff, so traveling, the long walks on the beach and whatever, right? Big into film. Film is kind of my passion, and we do a lot of foodie videos. So anytime there's good food somewhere, me and my wife will go out there, try it out, and I'll post a video about it. So that's just the things I'm doing right now. And of course, I work a full-time job like everybody else.
All right, thank you, Leti. And today's topic is on catfishing. What is catfishing and who become victims of this scam? So catfishing occurs when someone creates a fake online persona or identity, and they use it to establish a relationship with one or more individuals. And we might dive into the whole Manti Te'o situation. So I'm going to turn it over to the crew on what their experiences or what their perspectives is on catfish.
I guess I'll start, right? Because Manti is one of our local boys. Manti is from Laie, where I grew up. And I still remember when this hit the community. So even before it hit the community, there was a time where everybody was praising Manti and, all these posts on Facebook about Manti and all these great things. And then that happened, and then everybody flipped the switch and went opposite that. Not that people weren't being supportive, but people started just clowning. But I think that's just a Polynesian thing where we'll just clown no matter what. But I had a hard time trying to join in on the fun, like as far as like being on social media and posting the memes and reposting all these things, because of my oldest sister and Manti's family are really close, and they're good people. When all that went down, I felt really bad I really felt for Manti and then the family too, because they're such good people, and how the media just threw them in the dirt. And I was like, man, that was sad for me.
Yeah, that was a crazy story, because I'm glad that documentary came out, because I knew general tidbits about the whole situation, but I myself, I don't follow a lot of sports that closely. I kind of just follow MMA and combat sports in general. And so football, especially college football, is usually kind of a foreign thing to me. I remember when I would see the memes posting up, like as that time was happening, I had to have people explain it to me. I'm like, what are you talking about, this Manti Te'o thing? Like, I know Te'o's, like, who's that guy? And they had to tell me who he was and what happened. I'm like, oh, that's funny, but I didn't know the real details behind it. And, a lot of us didn't. But a joke is one thing. And, Manti seems like the kind of guy who can laugh at himself, but like, to show what was going on behind the scenes, where it's like this was something that was really messing with his head, because he, on an emotional level, he thought he had genuinely lost somebody that was close to him. But then on a professional level, this messed with the guy's like career. It messed with his performance towards the end of his senior year, and it messed with his placement in the draft. It's like, it's crazy how that must. And then imagine going through all that and then getting slapped with all the jokes from all these strangers who don't know you and don't, calling you a fraud. And I think the saddest part about it is that it seems like his genuine only crime was just being a legit nice guy. Like, he was just really legit trying to be a guy that was worthy of admiration, really thought there was this poor girl that he could confide in that was going through all these sad things. Yeah, he might be naive, but it's not like he was a bad actor and being naive. He was genuinely trying to be there to help somebody he didn't know. And it all blew up in his face. Like, for being a good person, that's what you get. I'm like, man, that's hard. And so it's, if anything, it's been kind of nice to see that he's been getting the vindication that he deserves.
And Spencer's mentioned being naive, and I bet everyone's been through that situation straight out of high school and going into college around that age as a young adult. All of us were basically naive. We don't know the ups and downs of and all the difficult and dangerous things that prowls around in the world, right? And one thing that I picked up from this whole situation was how Manti was in love with this girl, right, that he met online. And people started to question how he stayed in a relationship for 3 years and never met that person. When we're in love, we tend to not look at all these red flags that we are currently in. Until we get married, then we see all these red flags. But when you're in the beginning of your relationship, we brush off all these red flags, that because when you're infatuated and when you like someone, when you're in love or you're attracted to someone, you don't want to see those things. You just want to be in the relationship with that person at that time.
Yeah, you can tell it was real love too, or an idea of love, because none of the details brought up throughout while it was going on, and even now in this Untold documentary series, and nothing was sexual like you would, find when people on the internet hooking up, doing internet things, with technology and what it brings, you didn't hear, all them sexting wasn't going on, none of that. It's pure, this guy Manti looking out for who he thought was Lene. And that's, man, I know he forgave Lene, Naya, however you want to address it, proper title, Naya. But man, that just makes me so angry watching this thing. Like, because most of the times when they would cut to Naya and her perspective, like most of it was just what she was going through and what she was feeling, which is fine. But I didn't get a sense of remorse, like true remorse or being apologetic at all. It was more like, man, I'm glad I went through this because I got me some clout now. I'm famous. Because if it got to that part where she was like, oh yeah, I felt like the need to protect him still for some odd reason. But like, if you were really trying to protect Manti at that time, you would have fallen on your sword, so to speak. It would have been like, oh yeah, I catfished the crap out of that idiot. He's so stupid. He don't know what's going on. It was on me. And that's just how I feel. Like, I know I have no reason to be mad at that person, but like just seeing that and how even being older than Manti and in the military at that time, I saw him as a hero for our community and something to look up to for the young kids coming up, especially him being from the islands. And man.
So there's one thing that I've been wondering, because Manti's never mentioned it, is Samoan culture, right? There's a lot of Fa'afafines. I'm just wondering if Manti has been around the Fa'afafine community. That's probably one reason why he couldn't pick up on the voice, because when I hear the voice, I could tell that it was a Fa'afafine speaking. I don't know about you guys on
He's from the 808, bro. He's been around it.
I was about to say the same thing, man. He's from Laie, man. There's a lot of Samoans up there in Laie. On that same note, though, I think for our culture, especially Samoans in general, I think back then it was the way we verified individuals was just calling up that closest cousin or a friend, just trying to link somebody to know that person. And I think that's one of the things where he felt reserved, and he felt that, hey, this person is genuine in that sense, because one, his what's his name, that Shiloh was the one that initially verified it, and then he verified it again with other Usos. So it kind of made that story more authentic, and I think that's where the catfishing came into play. And I think back then too, catfishing wasn't really a big thing. I know it existed at some level, but when I was coming up, I don't know about you guys, but me and Manti, we were the same age. Back in 2008, Manti was supposed to come play for the Samoa Bowl 5 in American Samoa. Fortunately, he didn't show up because he had to go to USC. And I was waiting on Manti, to come down and play for the Samoa Bowl. Fortunately, he didn't come down there. But during that time, I've never really heard about catfishing until the Manti story came out. That's when I really knew about catfishing, like understanding this web of individuals that are out there that are putting out fake profiles. And they actually, you know what? I'm kind of lying to myself because it kind of go back on MySpace, because MySpace was initially that first social media to really kind of put the spot on fake profiles on the planet, so to speak. I don't know about AOL, dial-up, the older generations, but our newer generation coming up, it was MySpace for me at least, and then entered Facebook in 07, 08. That's when where I did my initial Facebook page. But as far as catfishing goes, that's a I don't know if we've seen the show Catfish, but when I was going back and looking at those, I'm like, man, there's really messed up people out there, like that really do this for a living to try to mess up other people's lives, especially people that like or love somebody. That's actually really is the people that are really close to them that actually do a lot of catfishing from a general, the commonality of things. There's actually people that are close to that other person that they like. Those are the people that really do the catfish. To my knowledge, that's my opinion. I don't know if the popular opinion out there, but that's the way I'm looking at it and seeing it at that point. But yes, man, really messed up what happened to Manti, man. Show my heartfelt congratulations, especially I think he's been put into a good light. Now I feel like he's a lot of weight came off his shoulders. Just the way he's speaking on I know we shared on earlier on Instagram what he put out there. But I think having that documentary being out there kind of put in a new light, especially for those. That last monologue that he did, I felt that in my heart, man. That last piece, man, I felt like, man, this is somebody that had a lot of people, the same people that were saying what's up to him, congratulating him, were the same people that brought him down. And no wonder why old boy Marshawn Lynch, he said, I'm just here so that I won't get fined. Because that's the same people that talk smack about him. It's the same people that brought him down. So, I understand where Manti and especially, all the football players that have that background. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that documentary is somehow brought out some emotions, especially I don't like using the word, but you started to hate and get mad and get angry for no reason, even though it's not our problem, but we're feeling it for Manti. But at the same time, some of the community are feeling sorry for what's happened to Renaya or Naya.
I want to take it back a little bit to what T was talking about, because I was feeling the same when they would cut to Naya. I could appreciate that Naya in specific parts of the story would specifically say, I'm not proud of this. I am not proud of how I did this or that. But you did feel that lack of remorse, because at no point did I hear her say, I'm so sad that I did this. Like, I have to hear Manti talk about how I forgive Naya, but I never heard Naya say, I'm sorry to Manti. I'm like, what's with that? And so I was getting angry, especially towards the end when they're showing her whole transition and her accepting her for who she is. I'm like, that's fine, cool. Like, be what you want to be. But you're the villain in this story. You're the bad actor. It's like you did the wrong thing. You're the one who caused harm to the innocent here. But we have to look past that because you accept who you are. Like, all right. It's like I don't know if you ever watched that show back in the day, the Boondocks. They had the granddad who was trying to find dates on MySpace, and he had this dinner made out for this girl. This looks hot on her profile picture. She shows up and she's not that good looking. And he's like questioning her at the dinner table. He's like, hey, when was this taken? She's like, oh, is that all you care about is looks? And he's like, yes. And he's like, well, what about what's on the inside? And granddad's like, but you're a liar on the inside. And I was like, that's kind of how I kept going back to with this. I'm like, cool, be what you want to be on the inside, but you're the villain in this story. I don't know. I was getting frustrated in that case. And like you were saying, Michael, it's not like it happened to me. I think any person that has a decent sense of justice, doesn't like seeing bad things happen to good people, at some point you've got to empathize with Manti more in this. And I'm glad that there's lots of empathy going around for him. And I do feel like he's getting his vindication. I saw him doing an interview saying where he's getting an outpouring of well-wishers and people like giving him support now that they know the full story. And I'm glad that that's happening. And thank goodness he's a bigger man than me that can extend genuine forgiveness where maybe I would be a little bit slower to get there. But once again, that's him being a good example.
I think it's crazy, like the amount of layers that Renaya had built through all of this. It's crazy how all of this aligned. Like, it's crazy how like Renaya really got Manti at a very vulnerable time in Manti's life. It's just crazy how all this lined up. And then the layer of, family members know Renaya or know Lene, and friends knew who Lene was, which confirmed things. And then talking to Lene, and then he had to kind of build that relationship over the phone. And then you have the picture of the girl that he asked for specific things to be in the picture with the Playboys. Like, all of it was it was so well built, right? It was so well layered that it's just, how do you get out of it when everything that you're thinking has been confirmed that Lene is real? I think especially the picture was the one that kind of just, for me, topped it all off. Like, that was like, Renaya did a good catfish, right? Isn't that, I hate to say that because I was like, man, that guy really built this Lene to be a real person and got people that Manti knew say that Lene was a real person. Like, it's insane how all of that lined up perfectly for Renaya's or Lene's phony catfish. That's just weird.
What do you guys think of this comment that's going around social media on the attitude that Renaya had, that Renaya or Lene made Manti successful or made him who he is right now?
That's a bunch of crap. That young man was a baller before all of that. And yeah, like the relationship had nothing to do with his level of play. Like, he was evolving as the years went on, and then none of that really came to light until that 2012 to 2013 year. And if anything, like we've been saying, the catfishing is what brought Renaya's success, or whatever you want to perceive as success, or gaining clout. You seen Manti's mom when she expressed how he changed after going through all the drama and stress dealing with the media. And like, when you're affected mentally as deeply as he was, I can't even imagine what he was going through at that time. Like, it really affects your play. Like, no matter how good you are, if there is some underlying issue that you're dealing with that you don't know how to deal with, oh man, you see it, the pro athletes are talking about it now in the different sports when it comes to mental health. So if anything, she kind of ruined that part, the beginning of his career. Like, he was still a high level athlete, sure, but that dog mentality, just to be as free as he said he was out there, that confidence, like he said, man, his feet would go numb for the first 3 years at San Diego. So I had, like I said, he was a hero, and then just seeing him get crucified, man, that was hard to watch, like real time. Like, man, how we felt about it doesn't really matter, but just being the one Samoan in a platoon of predominantly white folks, Mexican folks, and they all come to you and try to make jokes of the situation or get what your thoughts on Manti. It's like, hey man, that's still my guy. But yep, Renaya had nothing to do how great he was, or is still.
I'd even point to that part in the documentary where it's like Look, guy was a hot prospect from the get go, and he was earning his keep more and more and more with every season. And remember that part in the documentary talking about his senior season. He was already his involvement with Lene was getting less and less. Like Naya was getting upset and starting to pull desperation moves just to pull him back into the whole fantasy, because he was elevating to such a degree and having less and less involvement with her at that time. So he was already on the upward trajectory even when Lene was playing a lesser role. So I don't give any credence to people trying to say that he owes his success to the lie that almost wrecked him. So yeah, I'm right there with you, T.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. He was already on the upward trajectory. Even without Lene or Mania, he would have been a first draft pick, went to maybe whatever team, and he could have probably taken that team from wherever to maybe a top 5, top 10 defensive wise. That's my understanding of where his level of play, because you have leaders in the team and you have somebody that could affect other players. And Manti was that type of player. Now, when that happened, remember how he was going through the whole Heisman thing, and all he was thinking about was when Renaya came back in and saying, "Oh, this is me. I'm actually alive." So when that happened, that's where I think that's where the pinnacle of him starting to have the mental, everything started, that black cloud started to hang over his head from that point on until when, his career. That's why I'm saying now, like, I think there's a cloud that's just been lifted off of him, and now he's good now as far as his story is out there, redemption type thing. But yeah, I'm same way as you fellas, man. Like, if anything, probably Renaya need to get like a Golden Globe award or something for the best catfisher in the world. Like, I'm with Leti, man. Like, that's a written, especially for one person to do all those characters, all those voices, different phones, and the belief was for a long time that Manti was in it, and there was a couple other people that were in it. But now we know the real story. This fool got everything. Everybody, all man. That's some type of level of pettiness right there. I don't know. There's beyond pettiness. So yeah, like I said again, I'm with you guys on that.
Well, it's like, I'll be straight up. Like, I would have been fooled. Like, that was, like you both said, like, that catfish was top tier. I'd have been fooled for sure.
The answer is no, Your Honor.
So have you guys been in a catfish situation, or you guys know of someone who's been catfished? Because for me, I have been in a situation where I was catfished, and I brought it up to the boys before. When I was a young PFC in the Marine Corps in North Carolina, I was catfished. I was talking to someone tried to add me, and I ended up adding her. She was a pretty blonde. At that time, I was like around 19. 18. So I was naive to the going-ons of the world. And we started small chat. And this lasted for like 2 weeks. And it was on and off. We were having small conversation until the girl went, "Hey, check me out on this website." And I clicked on the link, and she basically guided me through the whole conversation in the process of signing me up for a subscription into the adult industry. So when I signed up, put in my whole card information, signed up, I realized that I was being catfished because the person I was talking to, I didn't even see her on that website. It was basically generalized just to get me to sign up on a website. So I called my bank and said, "Hey, I'm being scammed. Someone's taking my money." And then they told me to call the company, and I ended up calling the company just to cancel my subscription because there was no way to cancel the subscription. So luckily, I ended up avoiding a bad thing from happening, them taking my money. A lot of young people, they can fall victim to a lot of these scams. People telling you to go to this page, sign up, maybe have some screen time. But that was my situation when I was young, being drawn into the adult industry, adult film industry.
Was it an OnlyFans account or was it?
No, OnlyFans didn't exist back in 2009, I think.
Oh, you probably the first subscriber then.
Yeah.
Man, I got catfished back in the day, 2008. I want to say around then. Like, I was talking to this one girl. We talked for hours on the phone and whatnot. And then when it came to like visual meeting up and all that, it was a bit suspect. And I kind of figured like I had an idea on who it was, just messing with me. And then, but I still held on to that hope. And then finally we're gonna meet up one day. And then I drive from Mililani all the way to Laie just to get stood up. Yep, just sitting there looking like a weirdo in my blazer, Chevy blazer, just like looking around like, where are you? And then I was like, yep, this biatch, she got me. Because I knew who it was. I was like, gosh, dang it. I'm an idiot. Just looking out there in Laie Point, man. Just like, and, I'm young and unemployed at the time, so I just spent a grip of gas, and you know how gas is out there in Hawaii. So,
Do you have a name? Is there a name of this person in Laie? I might know who this is.
nah, I forget. It was so long ago and made me feel so stupid that I blocked it out in my mind. But even they got those scams now where it's a woman showing interest via DMs on Instagram, and then the female gets you, and then kind of gets you through, I guess, cam sex type of ordeal.
Those
And
cam
then-
girls.
Yeah, well, they get you, and they're recording the session between the both of you, and then they blackmail you, like, oh, if you don't pay me this amount of money, I'm gonna release this to all your friends and family. That's one of the most recent scams that I've seen happen to quite a few people I've known. Like, hey, if you get this, don't answer. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, and actually, it caused a few people to actually commit suicide. I've read articles on that too, because they didn't want to deal with the shame.
Well, and this is where the whole thing is this is where you start getting really angry because you hear about cases like this because it goes back to an episode that we recorded a while back based on trust. And we were talking about different experiences where some of us may have been more open to trusting people at different times in our lives. And I think all of us have this baseline where we don't default to trusting strangers anymore. And I think this is kind of why, in both your examples, you're young men growing up, getting ready to make your mark in the world. And young men want to feel validated. Like in Michael's case, you just left the island. You're part of the Marine Corps now. You got you don't have your family and friends close by. You're just making your mark on the world. And then you find somebody who's there saying, hey, you can confide in me. And same with Manti. Like all the things on that guy's shoulders, like nonstop athletics from being a kid to now trying to not upset that trajectory. I don't got time to go on proper dates and all this stuff because the school is depending on me. My team's depending on me. I'm carrying the reputation of my family. So all he has is this one person that he's confiding in. And I can see why we would be prime suspects for getting catfished and things like that. And it's a sad thing. I don't recall having an incident where I was personally catfished, but I've had family members that unfortunately were. Like I had a family member who had just gotten through a divorce and she was just lonely. She just wanted companionship again. And she was unaware of like the type of fraud that exists out there. And she fell for one of those scams where the person claims to be off in Africa or somewhere doing a humanitarian mission. It's like, uh-oh, my bank account got froze and now I can't afford to come home and I need you to send me so much money. That family member went into debt. And the biggest thing that just hurt the most is that on top of getting the money stolen and lost is that feeling of emptiness that brought her there in the first place is still there. And now you pair that with the shame and the embarrassment that you were taken advantage of for trusting somebody like that. It's like, this is where it's a serious thing. It's a sad thing. And it's like, I can see myself falling for the same trappings. I'm thankful that so far I haven't, but it's because I see stories like this that I've gradually I've gotten more and more wary as time's gone on, but I could see myself easily have fallen into those same things.
I think like the catfishing era is kind of outside of my era. Like I graduated high school 2001 and the internet was just barely around. It was just barely a popular thing at that time. But my uncle had gotten, so I went home to Hawaii to go visit him, and he was mad at me because he had to bail me out of jail. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. Why'd you call me to bail out of jail? I was like, I was never in jail. He was like, then who was that called? He told me it was you. And then he sent so much money to get me out of jail. I was like, oh, dang, you just got scammed. It was like, I've never been in jail. But I felt so bad because I should have called him and talked to him and kind of keep him in the loop of things. And then that somebody, I don't know who would pretend to be, like how anybody would even know that I was related or associated with him. It's kind of strange to me, but I felt so bad because I think he spent like $5,000 or something to get me out of jail. But he was so upset that I got arrested. I was like, oh man, I wasn't arrested. Somebody just scammed you.
Yeah, I've heard of that scam, and there's also this scam where they call the elderly folks, pretending to be city officials, trying to get them to pay their utilities and something similar to bills, and then the elderly folks will end up giving up money. And there's one scam that I remember one of a family member, she received a call. And for our listeners, if I don't want to be racial or stereotype, but if you receive a call from someone sounding Indian, don't fall for it. So this person called this family member and basically convinced her to mail or send off 300, and then that person will send back 1,000. So it's basically like a swap. You send 300, you get back 1,000. So that was a scam. The way they do it is they send you to Target to buy these gift card, and then you end up reading these gift card to that person, and then they use that gift card. So be wary of any scams that involve gift card. So if you're sending money to someone through gift card, Western Union, MoneyGrams, those are the ways they can get you, especially if you don't know that person. And make sure that it's like what Leti said, it's actually your family member. Confirm by talking to them, because it happens every single day.
I'll tell you guys what though, man, there are over 1 million scams out there. I'm just using the word million because I don't know, there's tons of scams out there. I don't know any personal stories about catfishing, but I know tons of scams. And I think catfishing is in that category of scams. So that's a type of scam. So that's my belief now. Catfishing is a type of scam. But for one scam, I had ran a business in Hawaii. It was called Polynesian Cleaning Services. As soon as I got out the military, that was my first thing I did, was started a business, a janitorial business, if that. So we got to the point where making a lot of money. This scam, unfortunately, it wasn't me. It was actually my lady that got scammed by this scammer. Anyhow, we got a call. A client wanted to clean the house, and she sent my wife a check for $1,500. My lady was all excited. It's $1,500. Wanted for a cleaning out in Waikiki. She put it in our business account. 2 business days later, found out it got, it bounced. Found out it was pretty much a scam. So they took, I think like $3,000. And then I took it, I bid it. I understood what it was. Fortunately, my lady didn't tell me about it, but I kind of already knew that it was a scam when she was explaining it to me. So I was like, did they give you a name? Yeah, the check and everything was all kind of legit. So she went and put it in our bank account. Came to find out, did some research. I think majority of all scammers, they like to stay below $5,000. And the reason why they like to stay below $5,000 is because the FBI won't investigate. Anything above 5,000, that's when the FBI comes in and start investigating. But it's always, the scam always has something about $1,200, $800 here to put in your bank, and then they'll pull out the money and they'll give you something. But it's just so that way they could get into your account to get money. So That's one type of scam, but I know there's trillions of scams out there, like the one Leti was mentioning, one Spencer was mentioning, and even Tan. But I tell you guys for a fact, man, that is really some. I don't know, people in other countries, man. I tell you what, it's just in general, but people they come up with different scenarios, man. I don't know how they come up with it, but I think it's just through the system. You know, whatever system they use the systems that are in place to manipulate, so to speak. I don't want to get sidetracked here, but I want to go back to the story, Manti story. My biggest question is, who is Chris? You know, Chris was the one that wrote that letter that went. I want to know who that guy is. If Leti from Laie, whoever Chris is, man, I want to know who that guy is because he was probably a scammer. Chris is probably a scammer. I tell you that.
I was going to talk about this because I saw the email. They showed a sample of the email on the documentary, and it said something like, "I'm Chris. I'm a native Laie boy." That gave it away right away. I was like, "That's not a Laie person." There's no. If you ask me if I'm from Laie, I won't go, "Yes, I'm a native Laie boy." That's not something we never say. So when I saw the email, I was like, "That email is not a Laie person." I was like, "That there's nobody in Laie that talks like that or writes emails like that." It was so properly written, like the way it was formatted. I was like, "No, we would have just said like 2 sentences. There's no like hello, hi, and that's it." And then nobody ever says I'm a native Laie boy. It just sounds weird coming out of my mouth. I feel like a phony, but this is my conspiracy. It's somebody at the school, man. I swear, somebody at the school probably sent it.
I'm thinking it was either Manti's best friend, that guy who went with him to Notre Dame, or it was someone. Have you guys noticed in documentary that a lot of people already knew it was Renaya through Twitter? So it was someone related to Renaya who gave him away because they sent all those Twitter messages. They already knew it was him. So what do you guys think about that Tawalunga towards the end? Because when that Tawalunga part towards the end came up, I wanted to throw something at my TV, but of course, because of inflation, I didn't want to buy another TV. But I got angry at the same time. I was trying to put myself in Naya's mindset. I couldn't understand why they chose to put a Tawalunga or dance. I don't know if they were trying to put something cultural in there or trying to celebrate a victory for Naya or what? What do you guys think?
No, the director's Tongan. He wanted to make sure everybody knew Ronaldo Samo.
Yeah, that's what we do. Every time something happens, he's Tongan.
That's funny, man.
I'm just saying, that's why I was saying earlier, like why I was getting so mad. It's like, because it looked, like you said, like a victory. And I'm like, look, I don't care how you want to identify. Congratulations on all that. But you're the bad guy in the story, or bad girl in the story, whatever. Like, you're the villain here. Like, you're the person who did something wrong, was the bad faith actor that hurt somebody. And I'm like, I have heard forgiveness on one end, but I have still yet to hear an apology from your end. Like that's the part that upset me the most. It's like, do your Tawalunga if you want, but like I'm not supposed to be celebrating with you right now, because the underlying story here is that you were the villain. Why? Like, at least fess up to that part. I mean, because even when they're recalling the whole how everything started to become unraveled, when Manti is trying to, because he still didn't know everything that happened. He knew that he got scammed somehow, but he didn't know exactly how. And when he was just trying to like give people all the information he had so that they can help him figure it out, and they're going to the media with it, Naya was upset because she's like, "Oh, you gave him the voice messages? Oh man, now I gotta explain this." And it's like, yeah, you should be explaining everything. You shouldn't just be explaining it because the poor guy over here is trying to help people understand that he didn't intentionally defraud everybody here. And you're only willing to come forward with so much info unless he releases more, forcing your hand to be like, yeah, I did everything. Like Nia was still happy to kind of sit on the sidelines and let people figure out exactly what happened.
Yeah, there are people on few people on TikTok that are kind of trying to make Renaya out to also be a victim of the whole thing. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not even sure why the documentary is upsetting in the sense of like they're still trying to celebrate Renaya as her coming out, whatever. That's a whole different issue compared to the documentary discussing Manti. But there are few people that are out there saying that she's a victim. And in my head, I'm like, how? What about Renaya's mental health? It's like, what about Renaya's mental health? This isn't about Renaya's mental health. And that's upsetting to see people just trying to, I don't know, I think people are just trying to find a different angle on a subject that's kind of trending now.
I think for those few people, they were trying to mention the fact that at the introduction, Nia was saying she couldn't find a job. Every job she was trying to, or he, I don't know what the pronouns are, but she was trying to find a job. She was getting denied everywhere. So I think those few individuals were trying to blame the victim card or use the victim card at that point based off of that. But you got to think about it. Who was the origin of this whole situation? Nia. So where's the victim? That's not the victim, guys. The victim is the other guy that jailed 4, 5, 6 years now, with this whole mishap, whole situation. So if anything, that's just a small, she should have been in prison, just getting denied, work. Hey, you went back to American Samoa, you got a job there, right? Tutuila, back home, Star Kids, so yeah, you found a job. But, as far as mental health, really should have, now we were talking about mental health, right? His story is kind of interesting too as well, because his whole family was all football players and he never wanted to play football. And then, so I guess that's another story too, on the victim card, because of his family trying to push him to play football when he didn't want to play football. But it's just a family of legacies, so to speak.
And look, if Nia is a victim, it's like, then what does that make Manti? Just some dude who got caught in the crossfire? Like, a victim of what? And then who victim by who? If your issue is with your family or your dad because you didn't like the pressure from being part of the ministry or football or whatever, take your beef up with them. But that does not justify your actions of what you did to this innocent bystander. Manti had nothing to do with you, wasn't even on the island at the time. You reached out to him, or you made a fake profile and you engaged with him, but you more than kept this going, even trying to bait him back in, even when you guys were kind of drifting apart. I was like, no, in the story of who was wronged and who did the wronging, that's kind of cut and dry. It's like, if you want to tell a different story about how Nia had a hard upbringing or something like that, I'm sure there's a story to be told there. But in this case of catfishing and who got catfished, like, Nia is not a victim here. Come on.
Yeah, I think Renaya, that saying of, you made your bed, you lay in it. And I think that's it for me. I mean, there's consequences for actions. And I think part of that not being able to get a job was just part of it's just ricochet, right?
That's how Illuma Moment speaks to the whole point of Nia doing this. Like, I mean, it's surprising that Nia agreed to tell her side, but then just that last moment when they inserted that, it's like, what purpose does this serve? Like, nothing except to a watch me moment. Watch this. Spotlight me. Yeah, here I am, female now. Check me out. Follow me. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I'm here. Yep, I'm the famous catfish. I'm not sorry at all, because that's what catapulted me up to this. Otherwise, I would have just been that guy at church that you suspect was in the things, but you could never confirm it unless I wanted you to. But and even the Pat McAfee show there, he was saying that all the people that make fun of him, Manti an apology, and even called Renaya a shit human being. So I agree with that.
We need to do a recut of this whole special and do a Samoan edition and just cut off the tauruma at the end.
I was just say all Naya needed if for people to really come down on her is if she mispronounced some Samoan words, y'all would be all up on her. But no, you're gonna go after the Rock, our favorite cousin.
You know, it's ultimately the director's fault for putting that taulunga in, right? Because the director, he plans everything out and directs the film. But good job on the director for the film. I enjoy the film.
So, just before we're done, I just wanted to bring attention to one thing because I'm only recently finding out about catfishing and scams and stuff like that. In recent years, one of my favorite YouTube topics is I found that there's a whole genre of YouTubers who basically exploit or expose and mess with scammers. I just picked this up when I was trucking because sometimes I get tired of listening to the same old music or podcasts and stuff. I found a dude called Kit Boga, Kitbogo, and the dude, it's just hilarious because what he has a thing where he had a family member that was scammed, like had lots of money taken from him, and it was like it really kind of messed up their life for a while. He's a programmer, and so he does this whole thing where he builds like a fake computer, like he's really techie, and when these scammers call saying, hey, I got to help you out with your virus, this or that, and he deals with different types of scammers, and it's very educational because he'll break down how the scam works, but then he has voice modifiers where he'll change, and so they think they're talking to some elderly old lady, and he strings them along, and like at best, like one of his goals is like the longer they're talking to me is time that they're not talking to an actual old lady and scamming her out of money, and then he's using it to expose them. But it's actually really funny because the guy it's basically like a big long prank call, but the guy getting pranked is a guy who's trying to steal money from old people, and so he exposes a few different kinds of scams. And so like as long as we're on this topic, we've talked about people that we know that have been affected by this. You know, there's lots of resources out there, YouTubers and people that have a lot more technical knowledge than I do that have some entertaining ways of educating us on how this stuff is going down and how we can counter it and whatnot. So I just wanted to plug that real quick.
Yeah, on top of that too, I came across the same guy too as well. The other thing is is understanding to seeing the type of scams when you get an email. And I kind of told my mom, because my mom was big on like, hey, son, can you check to see if this is real or not? And then I'd be reading emails, and all the emails are always almost all the same. Somebody asking for $1 million, or it's just the same lines of, yeah, I need help or this like that. So I've gotten to the point where like I just tell my mom, if anything messes about money, it's a scam. It's the bank or somebody that you know of that you bank with or whatever, then it's easily verifiable. But if anything like from nonchalant email, usually it's good because nowadays I think Google are able to verify spams and it'll just go into your spam folder. But back then it wasn't prevalent like it is or like back in the day. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things too, just knowing how to verify those scams before it does happen.
Yeah, and if something is too good to be true, don't fall for it.
And if I ever find out who Chris is, I know my community's working on this right now. And if we find out that Chris was Renaya, it's going to be a part 2 to this documentary.
That is crazy, man.
But I'll keep you guys updated, man.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into our episode. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you, Leti, for joining us. Please share your experience with us or suggest a topic you would like us to talk about. Thank you, and tofa soifua.